All right. Well, Jamie, thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, as I was mentioning just a few minutes ago, I've had so much fun following you, and just really admire, that you've really put yourself out there. I know we're going to get into it with the books that you've written, but also just really embracing this idea of being a mother and this financial planning world, and professional world, if you will, and being very comfortable with that. And so I love just to start with you sharing a little bit more about your journey to where you got to where you are today, but then also want to hear more about the books and sort of what led you to that. So I'll pass the baton and let you share a little bit more.
Okay, sounds great. So I have been a financial planner for 19 years now, which is so funny to say. And I actually got a degree in financial planning. So I graduated from college with that degree. But I got into the field completely by accident.
Okay.
I was a first generation college student and went to school to become a teacher, actually. And I think that was more just because I didn't know what all the jobs were that were out there.
Right.
But when I was a sophomore in college, my parents filed for bankruptcy.
Oh goodness.
And that raised a lot of questions for me. I was like, how did this happen? What does this mean? Are they going to jail? Like, how do I prevent this from happening to me?
Right.
Yeah, because that's when I really realized that I must not know very much about money or have good examples about it. So I wanted to learn how to handle money myself
Mhm.
and ended up taking a personal finance class at Kansas State University, just for me, not to major in it or anything, but just
Learn.
for my own knowledge.
Right.
And so I ended up taking that first course, and then another one.
Yes.
And then as I got more into it, I realized, what a cool profession, right? It's a great
Yeah.
way to help people, avoid mistakes and create a better life and get organized. And it just seemed like a really rewarding profession. So I ended up changing my major my junior year and becoming a financial planning graduate.
And here you are, and it's stuck, right? So um it's stuck. And okay, so I don't want to project or fast forward, but now you've written these books, right? So
Mhm.
it's like now you're sort of getting into this idea of educating the future, right? About financial planning. Tell us more about that and kind of the why. How did the spark? How did you actually get to producing the books? I mean, yeah. So tell us more about
Okay.
not just being a full-time financial planner, but then also now thinking about these kind of, I'll call it, if you want to call it, a side project. So
Mhm. Yeah, so the writing piece, like I've always loved to write. So I did writing blogs and just like company education things for all the firms I worked for
right.
along the ways. Like for example, when I worked at a bank, they would come out with the new benefits for the company benefit sign up, and I would help explain things to people, and I'd get the same questions from people. So I like would do a write up and be like, hey, here's what to think about when you're filling out your 401k. Here's what this short-term disability policy means and how it works.
Hmm.
And so I like to communicate through writing, and I think explaining things through writing is really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So in my current role at Aspire Wealth Partners, I've been there for about 10 years.
Hmm.
And that's kind of where the motherhood journey started as well. So when I first started at Aspire, my first child was 6 months old,
Holy
and then I've
smokes.
had three more since. I found that I was like living a lot of the experiences that clients were going through.
Right.
So, you talk about like, oh, daycare is really expensive, right? Well, I was dealing with it myself, right? Like we
Right.
were working with
It's very
people.
relatable.
How do we figure out how to add this, $1,200 a month line item to our budget? Where does it fit? How do we move things around? And then just all the things that go with it, right? Like you need to buy the bed and the stroller and the rocking chair and all these new things. And so I was kind of writing about it as I was going through it and
Right.
trying to make it kind of funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I ended up writing a lot of blogs kind of targeted to that young mother audience who's a, working mom trying to figure things out.
Right.
And, you're balancing all these competing priorities of paying off your own student loans, but you're also now saving for college for a child and, and all these things. Um, so that's really where the journey began. And I remember thinking, I could maybe write a book about this, like
Right.
with the money boss mom vibe. And I actually bought the domain name Money Boss Mom in 2017. Well, I
Okay.
didn't actually write that book until 2021,
Oh, I
but
love it. It's like it's in the works. It's been like brewing and everything.
yes,
So,
it's percolating. So I
yes.
started like organizing some of my blogs into chapters and
Mm,
just kind of putting them in folders like, okay, I'll get to this one day.
right.
But it took a lot longer than I thought it would. But the first book I actually published was Milton the Money Savvy Pup Brings Home the Bacon. And that is a kid's book about money that focuses just on the basics of identifying coins and their value, understanding that money is earned by working, and that
Hmm.
sometimes you have to wait and save to get what you want.
Hmm.
And that book really started because I couldn't find a lot of great books out there for kids about money. Because at
Hmm.
this point, I think I had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I was like, oh, I need to start teaching these kids about money,
Right.
what's out there. So I kind of bought whatever I could find. And then by the time my oldest son was 5, we were shopping at Target one day, and he's like, "Oh, I really need this." And it was a like $60 remote control
Right.
grave giant truck thing. And I said, that's not in our spending plan today.
Right.
And his response was, "We'll just buy it on Amazon then."
Yeah. Oh,
And I was like, okay. So so clearly my son doesn't understand that buying things on Amazon is actually also a financial purchase.
right.
And so I really started digging into like, okay, what concepts can a 5-year-old understand about money? Um, and how can I put those into a framework where we can talk about it?
Right. Right. So I have to ask, I'm a mom as well, right? And I've
Yep.
got two little ones. We
Hmm.
do the star system, right? You get chores, you do chores, you get stars, and you can earn things like you get to go to Starbucks for a cake pop or something, right?
I love it.
When do you really feel like you can start talking about money to kids, and what kind of things have you learned along the way to be able to help kind of them kind of have those moments, right? Of like it's not just stars and this or that, your family is working to I mean, for lack of better words, like put food on the table, right?
Mhm.
So I love to hear a little bit more about sort of when's that's introduced and how have you helped to sort of create positive saving patterns and just yeah, that kind of thing for children. So
Sure. Well, it's a work in progress. They're
yes,
still all
totally
underage
fair.
kids,
It
so
always is.
too new to rate. They might not be learning anything, but
Yeah.
what's been fun on our journey um, is I feel like when you give kids money and you give them some power with it, right? So you give them
Yes.
the decision making power, right?
Yes.
So if you say, okay, you earned $5 for these chores that you did, and now we'll take a trip to Target at the end of the month, and you can,
Get
take
whatever it
it
is.
out with your
Yep.
money. And it's really exciting to watch them kind of put things together and see, okay, like how much does this actually cost? How much do I
Right.
have? If I spend money on this, then I won't have any more to buy
Right.
something else with. Uh,
Right.
and so I feel like that's just really cool to see them start thinking that way. And I
Yes.
don't think they really get there until like 7 or 8, where they're
Right.
like really thinking
Really
about it.
clicks.
Yeah, because my 5-year-olds, they get paid and they have money too, but they just like they give it away to their friends. They'll be like, oh here, or they'll like put it in the yard. Like they just don't value
Doesn't
it yet.
yeah, that makes sense though, right? Which is why I was asking
Mhm.
about the age, right? Like the timing
Yeah.
of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think with older kids, especially my 10-year-old, like when we're shopping, he's very thoughtful now about, okay, I'm kind of interested in this thing. And so I'll take a picture of it with my phone. So we have a picture
Right.
of the item, a picture of the cost, and then he'll leave it there and be like, I just want to think about it. And then we'll
Right.
like walk around some more. He'll shop some more. And now most of the time he actually decides not to buy something. And he's
Mm,
like, you know what? I'm going to keep saving for something bigger. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm going to keep saving.
yeah.
But my 8-year-old is like, he'll look through a bunch of things. So like dump it all in the cart, like, yeah. And then it'll be like $70 worth of things. He has $30. So then we have to talk about, okay, well, what's a priority? Do you
Right.
really think you'll enjoy having this toy? Um, why do you want this one over this? And
Yeah.
so, but I think that just the act of the decision making and seeing what things cost
Right.
is really the learning part of the process.
Yeah.
Because technically,
Absolutely.
you want them to kind of spend money on silly things now.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
and make mistakes and figure this out. So they are learning the mistakes now while it's not a big deal, right? But they're not making these mistakes when they're, in college or something.
Absolutely. So I love the idea of books too, right? Like we've we're all about books over here. And I feel like they're such a good way to introduce children to the world for whatever it might be, right? To be able to expose them to just anything from hiking to potty training to, just learning about the world, right? Travel, all of it. So
Mhm.
you started with this book, right? To be able to help tell the story and the journey, but then what sparked you to write more than one book? I mean, it's an endeavor to be able to write one alone, let alone multiple. And sort of where did that, yeah, what happened after you wrote the first one and then kind of what sparked the preceding ones? So
Okay. Yeah. So the first Milton book, like I had said, I had kind of researched the different concepts that kids can understand at different age
right,
groups. And, that first one told a good story about like kind of waiting and saving and learning that you earn money by working. And then I felt like there was just more concepts that kids could still understand. So
right.
the second book is really about the kind of give, save, spend concept where you have,
Mhm.
like the three jars where each time you get
Yep,
paid, you don't just spend it all.
yep.
You allocate some to giving, you allocate some to saving, and then you can spend the rest.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to, we actually use those jars with my kids. And so I wanted to kind of solidify that story and what
Right.
that means. Because I feel like when kids get money, people never say, how much are you going to save?
Yes.
They're always just like, what are you going to buy? What are you going to buy with that? It's burning a hole in your pocket, right? And
Right.
so but there's other things you can do with money instead of just spend it. So yeah, and I actually
Sort of
have,
expand upon kind of that first idea of then what do you do with it? So
yeah. So now you're earning the money in the first book, you're identifying the coins and their value, and then like, okay, now, that there's a better way I can work with this money, right?
right,
Um,
absolutely.
and I, and I feel like that saving habit, like the earlier you instill that habit of like, every time I get money, I save a portion of it. I mean,
Right.
that will really help you in adulthood because I feel like a lot of adults struggle with that, right? And so if we
Yeah.
can make it a habit, that's the
So
goal.
okay, so just to also take a step back here, putting on the marketer hat, right? You've spent all these years of writing blog content, raising children, building these communities. Have you found yourself having more and more families come to the firm? Sort of, has that kind of attracted that target since as you put that energy out there? Is it more just been that this is sort of a value add to your current clients? I'd love to hear a little bit about that too.
Yeah. So I would say right now, the clients that I work with now and the clients that I bring to the firm typically are people in their 30s and 40s,
Yeah.
dual working parents that have kids at home. They're figuring out life, and life changes every couple of years when you have another kid or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think it has really zoned in on, parents as that's who I'm best at working with. Um, and I feel like when I started the books, I thought it would be a great like gift for clients, like if they're having a
Right.
baby or if they were older clients that are having grandkids.
Right.
But it has been a good marketing tool where
Mhm.
I don't really pursue, you
Right.
know, these people as clients, but they, see some content, they see my books, and then they might reach out to me to
Yeah.
to do some planning.
Yeah, it just is sort of a indirect effort. Like you don't realize, right? You're adding value out to that community, and then it just happens to, I don't know, like breeds like, right? So if it's something you're passionate,
Right.
yeah, then it sort of comes with it. So it's a validating, I guess, answer, if you will, right? Even if that wasn't the intent, and sometimes that's the best, right? It's not the intent, but it's just literally like, this is something I'm passionate about. I want to make the world better, and I see an opportunity here, and it happens that it not only helps, but it's creating other people that you can help too. So, um,
Exactly. Yeah.
it's a win-win. But uh,
Agreed.
that's so great. So, okay, just taking another step back here. So now you've kind of leaned more into this idea of supporting this, you said 30s and 40s, group, put together books about financial literacy, all these. I'm sure it's opened up other conversations in this space around financial literacy, educating, children, the next generation. What kind of things are you hearing, I'll call it in the financial planning world, related to these kinds of conversations? I love to kind of hear if there's certain like undercurrents or themes or just yeah, if noticing patterns of other people that go, I'm so grateful you did this. I also needed those books, or what are you hearing?
Yeah, well, I feel like in the industry in general, literacy has always been something that's very important, and it's something that people aren't learning in school. So what they do learn, they are picking up from their parents, just by observation, or they're learning by trial and error, and they're making a lot of mistakes along the way.
Right.
So there's been a big focus, and a lot of great organizations are really working on financial literacy content, activities, books, and those sort of things. But I feel like a lot of the conversation I hear with practitioners now is like literacy is one piece of it, right? Like the education is important. And if you don't have that baseline education, it's hard to make good decisions.
Mhm.
But the biggest factor is really the behavior side of the equation too.
Yep.
So it's like you might know what you should be doing, but do you do that? And why
Yes.
not? Right. So kind of looking at more of the bigger picture with whoever you're talking to or working with, or yourself, if you're like analyzing the way you act around money. And
Mhm.
people, do what they do with money in a subconscious way almost,
Right.
right? Like it's their money scripts by like Dr. Brad Klontz of like how they grew up and how they learned about money. And,
Yes.
they might hoard money for some reason because they saw their parents suffer, or they might be a spendthrift just because they never had anything growing up. So they want to buy all the things now that they can. Uh,
Yeah.
so a lot of it's getting to the behavior side of things too, and working around, okay, I know this about myself now, or I know this about my client now. What like systems can we put in place to make this more streamlined for them so
Yes.
they can save without having to think about it or getting in their own way?
Yeah, so that I mean that's absolutely fair, right? It's meeting the individual where they are. But I also
Mhm.
think, to a lot of what you're working on too is bringing up that next generation and creating those positive behavior patterns. So, and
Mhm.
helping just to be aware of that and creating a tool to be able to do that. So, and I would imagine even just talking with your clients too, those kind of conversations probably help their children and so on and so forth. So it's would come full circle. So, so
Mhm.
fun. Well, this is really great to hear about. As I mentioned when we started to just kind of opening up here, I also just admire that you putting yourself out there as a mother, as a working professional, and because it's not an easy fleet, right? It's totally hats off to working parents because being one of them, I know it just is it's just part of it. So I love that you put yourself out there, but not only that, have been able to, be able to hold that professional space, but then also to be able to support, the next generation. So it's like I said, many win-wins, but
Thank you. Yeah. No, it's exciting. And I think if you can, give your children the tools to at least understand financial concepts and give them some space to practice things
right.
while they're still young and under your roof, I think that'll just set them up for a lot of success in the future.
Yeah, so fair. So, well, any last thoughts or
Um, yeah, I don't think so. I'm working on a couple more Milton books. Um,
oh,
I have a good night story that I'm working on that doesn't really have a lot to do with money, but it's cute. And then one more that's more gratitude focused in terms of, we always want to buy new things, but also being grateful for what we already have and celebrating that. So hopefully those will come out probably next year in 2024.
oh, I love it. We'll have to watch out for that. Well, thank you so much for your time. We'll make sure to include some links below as well, to the books and to your bio and all of those good things. But again, thank you. And I'm excited for those books to come out.
Oh, thanks, Lauren.